Good evening. It is time for today's Tax Talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy, and you may be one of the 11 million people who received a math error letter from the IRS. Well, if you have, I'm the guy to talk to. I'll explain what it is and what you can do about it, and also what the IRS is doing about it. So join us, won't you? Well, again, welcome to the show. It is today's Tax Talk. Biggest news in the IRS today is these 11 million letters that went out. They are what they call the math error letter. They're common, but they're more than ever before that the IRS has sent out. And it's got a lot to do with all of the different programs that the IRS has implemented and has been in charge of over this last year. And so let's get right to the stories. And there's a couple good stories. And this has been going on for some time. The Taxpayer Advocate has written about this. The math errors have been going back for 40 years. And they also mentioned the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And that's why that's there, because I think this is against the Taxpayers Bill of Rights. But we'll talk about what that is also, because I think it's important that you understand that the IRS has a list of rights that all of us have. Hold them to it. So let's get to it. So this is the first story. Got an IRS math error letter in the mail? Here's what's going on. Millions of Americans are finding they owe the Internal Revenue Service more than they thought for their 2020 taxes. The tax agency has sent out some 11 million math error notifications to taxpayers, more than 5 times as many as they sent in 2019, and more than 14 times what they sent out last year. The adjustments generally demand more money or reduce refunds, and if you owe, they only give you a few weeks to pay or face penalties and interest charges. Is the math error a letter an audit? So this is where the Taxpayer Bill of Rights come in. They say not exactly. The IRS isn't asking to review or examine your financial information for your filing. It's saying that the calculations you made when paying your taxes were incorrect, and you generally owe more than you paid or are due a smaller refund. Which is paying, right? A refund is not them giving you money. Generally, it's you getting your own money back. Why do I owe more taxes? There are a number of possible reasons, from the math error on your accountant's part or your part, to a missing or incomplete Social Security number, to the last name of a claimed dependent not matching IRS records. The best bet this year, though, is that you're getting the letter because of economic stimulus payments. If your gross adjusted income exceeds $75,000 or $150,000 if you're married and filing jointly, $112,500 if you're head of household, then you might have to pay some of the stimulus check back. Thank you, IRS. Right? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? They give you money with one hand and take it back with the other. You can, but they won't make it easy, right? The IRS doesn't make it easy for you to get that money back. You might pay. So people who disagree with the amount are encouraged to call the IRS. Now, I got to tell you that the IRS is only responding or answering a very limited number of calls. Some say 2%, some say 2/3. I think it's less than 2/3, greater than 2%. But it is very difficult to call the IRS now, especially when you have 11 million people who are getting this letter who are going to be trying to call the IRS about it. It's going to be very difficult to get through. You have 60 days to request an abatement. Abatement means forgiveness for the amount owed. In that time, you can provide additional documentation to the IRS to explain why you shouldn't have to pay. However, the IRS notes, if you don't provide us additional information that justifies the reversal, and we believe the reversal is an error, we may forward your case to an audit. So if you object, we may audit you. Who wants an audit, right? It seems like a threat, doesn't it? If what happens if I don't raise the amount I owe? Well, there's always this is collections, and they give you these different avenues to get into a collection, whether it's an installment agreement, offering compromise, currently not collectible status. That's one way to get it resolved if you owe money. My math error letter didn't mention 60-day period. Many of them didn't. Over 5 million letters went out this year without the language of the 60-day period. This was an error, and the IRS is resending those math error notices with the proper language, and the clock is being reset. So if you got one without a 60-day notice, they're going to send you a new 60-day notice, and the 60 days will start when you get the new one. Stimulus payments were part of 2021, so this might happen again next year, they're going to tell you, right? It could happen again next year because of the same thing. This is just another story about the same IRS demands. But what I wanted to talk about also is this. This is from the taxpayer advocates and how they had math error notices. The IRS does not clearly explain math error adjustments, making it difficult for taxpayers to understand and exercise their rights. And so I'm just going to read a little bit. This is several pages long, but so I won't get into all of this with you. But again, the IRS recognizes there's a problem, but doesn't do anything to fix it. As this article will show, 40 years have gone by since this problem has been brought to their attention, and they have not fixed it. Under Internal Revenue Code, I'm not going to talk about the code, access to without the first the IRS is authorized in specific instances to assess tax without first issuing a statutory notice of deficiency. Now, a statutory notice of deficiency, what is a statute means by law, right? There's a law that says if they find that your tax return is different and they're going to assess a greater amount than you put on your tax return, they must send you this notice of deficiency. And with that notice of deficiency, you have 90 days to work it out with the IRS or file in the U.S. tax court. And in U.S., this gives you a third party, independent third party, to make the adjustments if necessary. Because oftentimes it's hard to get the IRS to even listen to your case. And so if you go 90 days, file a U.S. tax court case. I think I talked about that a couple of weeks, last week, I believe. We talked about U.S. tax court and they have a small case, less than $50,000, and you can file it yourself. There's lots of information on ustaxcourt.gov to help you file a petition. They have sample petitions, instructions on what to do in order to bring a tax court case. Now, it is in court and you're in front of a judge, and sometimes you might need help. And of course, that's what we help people do. We bring cases to tax court and fight the collections. That's what we do. Congress was concerned about granting the IRS this expanded authority and specifically directed that when the IRS makes a summary assessment for a mathematical error, the taxpayer must be given an explanation of the adjustment. The explanation of the adjustment in the math error notice is critical to the taxpayer's ability to challenge the adjustment and preserve his or her right to petition U.S. tax court by requesting abatement within 60 days of the notice being sent. So if they send you a notice and you object within 60 days, then you'll get a statutory notice of deficiency and you'll have an opportunity to go to tax court and object. And if you're not sure if you should object, I think you should object because you don't know and you need some time to look at it. But don't let the clock tick and miss your opportunity to object. Otherwise, you'll just wind up paying, right? Not something, again, if it's a minimal amount of money, maybe it makes more sense to pay them. And the IRS, believe me, the IRS thinks that makes that an alternative because it's so difficult to deal with the IRS. Many people will just say, I'll pay it. Many people overpay their taxes because they don't want to get involved with the IRS. And they're scared of the IRS and the power that the IRS has. And that's understandable because they do have great power. And anything you can do to avoid them, many people do. I'm not one to take willy-nilly tax deductions and hope that the IRS objects or doesn't notice because they will notice and they will object. And then you've created a problem with an audit. And audits are lengthy, frustrating, and expensive. So you don't want to go there. Although nearly 4 decades have passed since Congress instructed the IRS to explain math error adjustments to taxpayers, the explanations are often unclear, complex, and leave taxpayers confused. This makes it difficult for taxpayers to determine what specifically has been corrected on their tax returns and whether they should accept the adjustment or request a correction. Such confusion may drive the taxpayers to seek clarification of the notice by calling the IRS. However, reaching an IRS employee might take days. Since accounts management, the IRS function responsible for answering these calls, answers less than 2/3 of incoming calls, thereby using at least a portion of the taxpayer's 60 days to request an abatement of the adjusted tax. And what you call, you don't get it, it doesn't answer. You call the next day, it doesn't answer. You wait a couple of days, you call, and then you forget about it, and you don't call. And then the 60 days goes by, and then you're out of luck. The time has ticked, and you don't even know why they're asking you for this other money. I think there's let's go see if I can talk about the analysis of the problem. Actually, this is a big enough problem that we should probably spend a whole show talking about this, and I will, because I think it is that important. But here's the most common math errors. I want to get to this. Okay, so let's go up. The most common math errors: Social Security, tax error, just plain making a mistake. This is the first-time home buyers. The third one there is that first-time home buyers, and then the next one is dependent. You got your dependent on the SSN, Social Security number wrong, and the capital gains tax. Now this is happening a lot with cryptocurrency, right? Because it's a capital gains, and they're getting information from your exchange that you didn't put on your tax return, and they make the adjustment, and then they send you this notice. So it is, but okay. So I wanted to talk about the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, because they mention this here, and this is why they believe this is a taxpayer advocate now. This is part of the IRS. It's an independent third party, but it's independent in the sense that it's a different department, but it's still the IRS, right? It still is what the IRS, it's still part of the IRS. So now let's talk about the IRS Bill of Rights. Let me go back here. And I have a nice slide for the IRS Bill of Rights. Okay. First, I also wanted you to notice my new background. I've got the city of Chicago behind me, and it's at dusk, so very very pretty, I think. Anyway, this is your rights as a taxpayer, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights is it's 10 rights like our Bill of Rights, and I can read them to you, but I'm not going to read them to you because the IRS has a video that they can show us, and see if I can play the video, and then we'll talk about it after the video.
The right to be informed, to quality service, to pay no more than the correct amount of tax, the right to challenge the IRS's position and be heard, to appeal an IRS decision in an independent forum, the right to finality, to privacy, to confidentiality, to retain representation, and the right to a fair and just tax system. These 10 rights make up the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. When it was adopted by the IRS in 2014, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights did not create new rights. The Internal Revenue Code, as well as other laws, regulations, and IRS administrative policies, already contained many taxpayer rights and protections. However, because the tax code is so large and complex, many taxpayers are unaware of their rights. In fact, a 2012 survey by the Taxpayer Advocate Service revealed that only 46% of taxpayers believed they had any rights before the IRS, and only 11% of those actually knew what those rights were. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights makes it easier for taxpayers to understand their rights by taking the rights embedded in the tax code and grouping them into 10 broad categories. All IRS employees are responsible for knowing, observing, and protecting these rights. Congress recently added these 10 fundamental taxpayers' rights to the tax code and mandated that the IRS commissioner ensure that its employees are familiar with and act in accordance with these rights. For more information about taxpayers' rights, visit taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov.
Okay, so that's the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. It's a taxpayer advocate service. It's a, again, it's people don't know that they have these rights. And I wanted to point out also, let me go back here to this, because one of the major rights that I point to people, and maybe this makes sense, this will make sense to you, is the number 9, right? The 9th right is the right to retain representation. Right? So oftentimes people will call the IRS, and the IRS will say, and you'll say, well, maybe I should get a lawyer, and they'll tell you, oh no, use the money to pay the IRS. You don't need any representation. But here, and I'm going to read it again because I know it was in the, but this is important. The taxpayers have the right to retain an authorized representative of their choice to represent them in their dealings with the IRS. Taxpayers have a right to seek assistance from the low-income taxpayer clinic if they cannot afford representation. So if you can afford representation and you're entitled to that representation, then you have to be able to pay for it, right? And this is where it comes in, because when I'm trying to come up with the payment plan with the IRS, and I have these bills from a representation, whether it's an attorney or enrolled agent or somebody else, a CPA, right? They cost money. Everybody costs money. And then is, well, how am I going to pay? And I get this all the time. People always ask me, well, how am I going to pay you and pay the IRS? And the answer is paying a representative is a reasonable expense. It's in the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, right? They can't tell you that you can't have representation because it's right there in the Bill of Rights. Okay, so I thought that was an important distinction, and I wanted to point that out to you. So, okay, so we're going to talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights again, and also this math error problem, because I think it's going to be lingering for some time. I've read some articles about it, but again, when I saw that 11 million people have received this error letter, I thought, well, we should do a video on it and at least inform people about what that is and how they might be able to resolve it. Okay, so here's before I get into my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. The real thing to do is don't ignore it. Take the 60 days and call or write. I think it's better if you write them a letter and object and call. But if you write a letter and object and then make sure you send it, that you can prove that you sent it within the 60 days. And then you will have preserved your rights under this Taxpayer Bill of Rights, right? And the 60 days. So don't let the 60 days go without. Many times people won't open the IRS letter for 60 days. So open IRS letters. If it says 60, respond right away. Even if you think, hey, maybe they're right. Because they might be wrong, and until you determine whether they're wrong, if you don't understand what the letter says, then you've given up your rights to object. So don't give up your rights to object. And you'll learn all that. You'll learn more about how to set up a payment plan and all that in my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. You can get a free copy at freeirsbook.com. Again, freeirsbook.com. So get your free copy today. And also, like, share, subscribe. Okay, we need you. I want you to get this stuff out to people that need it. There's great information here. If you feel it's great information, like, share, subscribe. So thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate that, and we'll be here again tomorrow. And I hope you're here with us. So thank you so much for joining us.